again, I want to hit you with a little science, a little current events, a little foundational glossary. So I think there's going to be something for beginners, intermediate to advanced exercisers, and everywhere in between. We'll try to throw out myths and different ideas and encourage questions. If you have any clarifications, go ahead and hit me while I'm talking. If you have questions that are kind of global, we'll take them at the end. All right. For me, a little bit about me. I'm a PT. I work in the building probably about 2 blocks that way, same side of the street. We also have PT on the inpatient side, occupational therapy and speech therapy in both buildings. We see injuries. We usually are 7 days a week on the hospital side, 5 days a week on the outpatient side. We also have satellite clinics in Conneaut and Jefferson. So I've been a PT about 19 years now. So we don't want to fool you. This is going to probably be difficult. The more difficult you make this, probably the better results you'll get out of it. So just a take on nothing good comes easy, and nothing easy is typically good. So don't need to sell you the story. The trends of our country have through the years gone up. Your legend down here, as it transitions to yellow and red, it's just signifying more and more of the percentage of those states' population is considered overweight or above a 30 BMI. So this slide stops at 2013, but 5 years have passed since that data, and we continue to see this as an issue. So don't let us fool you, diet versus exercise. The research right now is saying in that battle, diet wins, but exercise shouldn't be shortchanged. So again, I think there was a study just came out. It was kind of one of those duh studies. Said exercise is pretty well as effective at lowering blood pressure as medication if you apply it correctly and if you're capable of doing it. So we're not going to fool you in saying exercise is going to be the solve. It's going to be a combo. It's not a weight loss drug in and of itself. Some people, when they start exercising or when they get heavy into it, they see a weight gain. So what you're looking for is a recompositioning of your body in many respects. So don't look at the scale as your only measure and get frustrated. I think June said it best. This isn't just a weight loss program. It's how do you go forth and use some new data, new information. Sleep and weight, again, huge. Don't shortchange the value of a good night's rest. A lot of these hormones, I think leptin and ghrelin, were measured, and this was big about 10 years ago, and I didn't see too much further research on it now, but sometimes you impact sleep and you improve quality of sleep and duration of sleep, and you start to play with those hunger hormones, so less hungry. So I think probably running in more of a stress state when you're sleep deprived. And that came from a pretty reputable journal, Journal of Endocrinology, so hard to get into that. Potential exercise benefits. Again, this is if you do it right, or if you're applying it steadily and you adopt this as a lifestyle instead of a program. Don't end this in 12 weeks. Ideally, you're just beginning or carrying it through or kind of fine-tuning as you arrive here. So I don't think I need to sell you on the benefits, but many of them are real transparent. Some of them are kind of like, oh yeah, I didn't think about that. Immunologic, the quality of your ability of your body to fight things off. Initially, right after a bout of exercise, it might dip, but long term, you might see a benefit to it. Potential costs. Again, I don't think I need to sell you on the cost because we put a lot of these things in front and say this is why I don't do it. Time probably being the number one. Sometimes financial. Sometimes there's financial limitations to doing something of this nature, but typically it's probably more time as anything. You don't really need a lot to exercise. You can exercise body weight. Effort, know-how. Sometimes travel, fatigue. You get home from work if you have a physical job or a mentally exhausting job. Sometimes exercise is the last thing you want to do. So what's the average value? You put the potential benefit over the potential cost. This is just from one study, Journal of the American Heart Association looked at hospital claims and as they relate to heart disease. So someone who exercised at the guideline, 30 minutes 5 times a week, was spending this much less on healthcare. That's just as it pertains to the heart. So it's probably a lot higher than 2,500 diabetes management, all sorts of different values. So if you're a numbers person, you want to turn it into a value, that's the argument for exercise. So glossary, again, I don't want to, certainly there's all levels of different knowledge in the audience, and I don't want to over-talk it or be too technical or under-talk it and be too humdrum and put everybody to sleep. So we'll talk about a few of these terms. You'll hear them tossed around in fitness. You'll hear them tossed around in therapy clinic, that sort of thing. Adaptation. These first two are concepts really as to how therapy and exercise program can be effective. So adaptation is simply the principle that your body is going to adapt to what you throw at it. So if you throw a couch at it, it's going to get real good at sitting at the couch. If you throw graded exercise, it's going to respond and adapt. And I'll get to it in a little bit where that's your advantage. Over anyone who's seasoned in the gym, a beginner has advantages. They're going to get better results in a quicker time frame. Once you're a seasoned gym rat, it's hard to get the gains. So you get the exponential benefit if you're on the front end of exercise. Specificity, train what you want to improve. So if I want to get better in the pool, I don't run, I swim. If I want to get better at bicycling, I bicycle. And then you can use programs to practice similar types of activities. So specificity comes into play when you're dealing with personal trainers or fitness specialists. We're going to take a class here to get our endurance up, our flexibility up. We worked on a lot of different things. So use those two principles to improve what you want to improve. Aerobic versus anaerobic, those just mean what fuel source your body's going to be operating off of. If you think about aerobic, you can do it a longer time period. It's the utilization of oxygen, jogging, slower speed stuff. Anaerobic, this is the without oxygen, typically a sprint. 10, 15, 20 seconds max sprint, and then you're going to fatigue out. Heavy weightlifting, that sort of thing is more considered anaerobic. So you can't do it for a very long time. Resistive, using a weight, using a TheraBand, kettlebell, you can achieve resistance many different ways. You can use your body as a measure of resistance. Intervals, just as it says, go, stop, so that you're challenging yourself and then recovering, challenging yourself and recovering. We'll spend a few slides on that, and there's some neat benefits that come from that. HIIT. Has anyone heard of that term, HIIT training? High intensity interval training. It is just basically doing that at a very high level and programming it. The opposite of HIIT would be considered LISS. You guys heard of that? So low intensity, steady state exercise. Somebody's going for a soft jog for 30 minutes, elliptical machine for 30 minutes, 45 minutes. If they're not accelerating and decelerating, they're doing more of a steady state. Metcon, you might hear this if you kind of get into more of the CrossFit sorts of workouts. Not always CrossFit, but it's kind of a HIIT is a form, or high intensity interval training is a form of this. This is metabolic conditioning. Basically, these folks are exercising hard and they're lighting the exercise furnace. Basically, they're trying to get that afterburn effect, and I'll talk about that in a minute. Where they started to use resistive bands to reduce blood flow, and they used it more in the rehab process at first, reduce blood flow to get muscle building effects from it. So you can get muscle hypertrophy growth out of that principle, and you can stimulate muscle growth using a lower weight just by depriving the oxygen to the muscle a little bit. I've never done it, never used it, but a lot of the research has pointed to that. So if you see occlusive training or that sort of thing, or people banding their arm or banding their leg and then working out, that's what they're doing. Plyometrics, jump training, this is kind of like a Russian sort of development. Eastern European Olympic programs use these in the 60s, 70s to really accelerate their programs. I think they were using some other stuff too to accelerate. Plyometrics is typically associated with box jumps, shock training, rapid turning on, so teaching the neurological system to turn on rapidly. It is effective for certain situations. So that afterburn, neat principle that says if you exercise hard and you turn that furnace on, you get that carryover effect. So you might be done exercising, but your body still has to do the work to repair what it just did, so it can last. So if you do a workout hard enough, you can get a bonus, calorie bonus. And then the problem is we get hungry and then we go ahead and kill all the bonus that we just created. So adaptation, some of the types of different adaptation that can occur, physiologics, your cells can get better, your metabolic principles. If you throw a challenge at your body and your body's not capable of handling it or just on the border, your body's going to rebuild stronger, better, faster. And that's the principle of adaptation, whether it's cardiac rehab, neurologic, you name it. That's our principle. That's how exercise achieves improvement. Again, just talking about specificity, I think we covered that one pretty good at the outset, but it's just practicing the task. For the triathloner has 3 different types of activities that they're trying to specifically get better: swimming, running, cycling. And if they're training on cycling, sometimes their other stuff doesn't improve quite as much. Or if they're training on swimming, so you kind of have to vary the channels and vary the stimulus. Mismatch. So sometimes this happens. I'll give you the example of plyometrics in programming. So if your goal as an athlete is to get a higher vertical jump and your coach gives you this number of reps or does it over 6 weeks, what they're going to see is probably not good result. They'll get more endurance because they're training so many reps that they get tired. Their neurological system doesn't have a recovery. So when you're training plyometric, you're trying to get explosive power. When you're training endurance, you go high reps. So it really just means what do you want to work at? You want to be able to get all the housework done in the morning in a nice block, train more high reps. Different exercise types. So going back to basics, Bonnie did a good job covering really all these: flexibility, balance, strength, endurance. So as I'm doing now, yeah, we're hitting all of them there. So those are the basic kind of overriding subtypes. If you're building a program, you're going to address various components of those. So going back to, let's see, go here. So if we talk about skeletal muscle, going back, comparing more of a sprinter to a middle distance runner to a marathoner, they're going to have different characteristics. What do you think of when you think of a sprinter? Or who do you think of? Anybody know a sprinter?
Bolt.
Bolt. Usain Bolt. What's he look like? Muscly, long, lean, but kind of built. What do you think of when you see the marathoner? String bean. Yeah, very. So they're expressing different muscle characteristics. So if you look at it, the type 1 fibers, so the contraction time, it takes a little while to turn these muscles on. Oxidative capacity, how well do they use oxygen? Diameter, they're small diameter, they're not the muscly large diameter. Resistance to fatigue, high, they can go a long time. And generating force, they're not generating as much. Your sprinters have more, probably genetically, and have trained this type of muscle fiber. They probably have more of them. There's a reason why certain individuals tend to be better at certain types of sports, certain types of activities. You know, a long distance runner doesn't easily convert over to a sprinter and vice versa. If they live somewhere in the middle, usually those are really solid athletes all the way around, but you know, it's interesting. So you get a different concentration of fiber type. So a long distance runner has a different, somewhat expressive makeup than a sprinter. Specificity of training, that principle that we're talking about in the programming, really helps to define this a little bit more. So if an athlete is more of a slow twitch fiber kind of person, they want to be more on the sprinter, they can work that end. They can improve on those. So again, we talked about kind of the marathoners versus the Olympic lifters. Olympic lifters typically have some of the highest vertical jumps. Marathoners typically have the lowest, and that's probably just expression of those muscle fibers. So our newbie gains, or beginner gains, like we were talking about. So we've all been there. Don't worry about it, and we'll hope to not have you be there, but talk to these professionals in the audience. But like I said, beginners, the seasoned athletes or the seasoned workout people are going to be jealous of your ability to get gain. If you're brand new to a program, you're going to make gains like no one else, and if you stick with it. And what that is, it's a bit of neurological adaptation. You haven't introduced that stimulus to ask your body to respond. They've been doing it for years, or some of them, so they can't get that initial burst of improvement. Over time, this is where, to get to the bottom, you can get a little frustrated with this. If you start out a program, you see all these great gains and excited and motivated, and you see 2, 3, 4 months into this program, and the numbers get smaller, and fewer people are sticking with it. That's a natural effect. You got to vary the program. Like we talked about, your appetite can go up. So try to battle those effects as best you can, and know that they're probably around the corner. At the sign of that plateau, it might be an indication to try a new class, or try a different form of working out. It's not to say that you can't come back to it, but if you change it up and then come back to it, you can kind of tap into this effect again. So I'm not saying if you find something that you love to give it up, go ahead with it. It's going to help you maintain. But if you want to jumpstart a new endeavor, that's how to do it. So this again going back to high intensity interval. So if you graph it out, it's sprint, rest, and various cycles of that over time. And then you get the afterburn. And sometimes that afterburn can last into the next day. It's not a giant amount of caloric burn, but it's there. So the research on high interval training is pretty solid. You get a lot of cardiovascular benefits. It's tough to do, but it's worth it. So those who are time condensed, don't have a lot of time to work out, don't have 4 hours to spend in the gym every day, this would probably be your biggest bang for your buck early on. Hard and then relax. So the scientific way of stating it, and then kind of a little more of the layman's terms, you kind of get those cellular changes that help our mitochondria do better, and you reduce adverse plaque formation, or not plaque formation, but thrombin or blood clot formation during events of stress. So starting the program, these are just my general takes. Don't read into it any bit more than that. There you go. So analyze your baseline. Get a good feel for, you all know yourself. You all know what your vulnerabilities are. What you like to do. What elements. Go towards your interests as best you can. Take an honest appraisal of your weaknesses. Opportunities. I would look at this as an opportunity. Everyone around you is an opportunity. Make a friend. We're always encouraging folks. Hey, talk to the folks beside you, and they'll help you support, because they're going through the same struggles. Everyone started a program and then had the best intentions, and then let it fall off. Things happen. Threats. So know what derailed past efforts and try to head it off the past. And then sustainable. Like we said in the beginning, try to pick something that is achievable to making it a lifestyle versus a 12-week program. I think in the years past we've seen folks blaze through this program, win the program, next year or 2 years later do it again. So ideally we don't want to encourage a yo-yo style. We want to encourage, hey, you're here, you do this, and then next year you're coming in at a lower fighting weight or more toward your fitness goals, and then it's helping supply that motivation. Reflect and measure against your baseline. I'll show you a few of those measurements that we would suggest. If anyone wants the PowerPoint at the tail end, you can, I'm sure you'll get email addresses or whatnot. You can kind of use this as a reference. We can send it out. Enjoy the journey. Make it enjoyable, but know that you're going to probably get that mood-enhancing benefit by getting through a little bit of this hard work. Listen, I think last year we talked about pain being a language, and I'm still a big fan of that concept. Some pain's good. Some pain is expected after workout. Delayed onset muscle soreness is expected if you do a specific type of workout. It'll go away. Sometimes a little bit of exercise will help it go away. But not all pain is post-exercise normal. If it's a joint pain or a pain running down your leg from your back, listen, don't force fit something. And fight boredom. Boredom probably derails more of my exercise endeavors than anything. You do it for a few days and I'm like, frame your failures. Not like this guy. I had to laugh because the only real mistake is one from which we learn nothing. So you have these entrepreneurial types and these inventor types saying that, yeah, give me failure, give me failure. And then this comedian, if at first you don't succeed, destroy all evidence that you try. And I had to laugh because one of my first summer jobs, I did a summer internship thing at Lubrizol, and they would have these chemicals on shelves, and I was working with folks. This was their job, and I was a summer intern student and upstart that probably didn't know what I was doing. And anyway, you'd have a certain number of ingredients. You'd have to blend them on a balanced tear scale that was down to microns or whatnot, or however it was measured. And there were a few times in the early going where I started to try to build this blend, and then I screwed it up. And I knew I screwed it up, and I might not have had enough supplies to try it again, so I just kind of sneak it back on the shelf like nothing ever happened. So I was trying to destroy the evidence, and I look back and I'm like, yeah, I probably took the wrong pathway there. But again, frame it, expect it, grow from it. Don't beat yourself up. You're going to try things that you hate. You're going to try things that might not do it for you, but stick with it and be resilient. Success. So like we said, don't pin your hopes to the scale. Actually, if you do a heavy exercise component, you might expect the opposite, but I think you're still going to be happy with results. Body composition, waist measurement, mood. Mental toughness, huge. So you're going to be more resilient. The more you work out, the more resilient to working out you're going to get. So, strength, speed, activity tolerance. You name it. And you could go on and on. You can go back to the earlier slide in the show and look at it as well. No limits there. So really last slide, I kind of want to open it up to question and answer, myths. I get asked about stretching, pre-exercise, post-exercise. I don't know, any topics out there from y'all that you want to ask about or learn about? What's pressing? Too much, too little? So if you're talking about stretching, I like a warm-up first. I like somewhat of what we just did. I think that's great. Limber up everything. You're typically stretching something cold. You do it, but sometimes stretching will inhibit performance if you go on ice cold and then stretch. Probably a little bit more effective post-exercise than pre-exercise or after a 5-10 minute warm-up. Ibuprofen. I'm not a fan. I know a lot of folks who load up on ibuprofen beforehand. Again, here's my disclaimer, not a doctor, but I believe, as a therapist, from an injuries perspective, if you're loading up on ibuprofen to get through something, it's probably not a good idea because that's your language. It's something saying, what you're about to do is probably a little bit above your capacity, so be careful. Bulking up, hear this sometimes, I don't want to bulk up from exercise. It's probably more myth. Those are the folks that are trying to bulk up are making dedicated efforts to change their eating style and really going after reps and sets and programs, and it's kind of hard to bulk up. You kind of have to be that genetic, unique person that would naturally bulk up over starting an exercise program. Dangerous exercises, I think mostly it ties to form and how you program them and how you do them. So again, talk to someone, have them look at you if you're doing them. But there can be a few if you're using terrible body mechanics. You don't want to beat up your back. Again, running, does it produce arthritis? I think the science is not really saying yes. It's saying not really. It's probably more those who try to hit it too much too soon and don't have their joints and connective tissues prepared to do it on a regular basis. Plyo, again, we talked about programming. If you want a specific trait to express and you want to increase your explosiveness, don't train so many reps. Train 3 to 5 reps. Don't train 40 reps to try to get more, because you'll fatigue your neurologic system and it won't work. Keto, kind of one of the diets that's in the rage. I'm not a dietitian, and I'll channel that to others, but that's kind of based on the kind of similarity to, I believe, in Atkins, where you go high fat, high protein sorts of things and drop out carbohydrates. If you have more questions on that, we can certainly defer to the expert over there. But I think it's interesting. There's another one called Whole 30 or whatnot, a different type of diet. I think it's Whole 30. Might have the number wrong. And then last one I'll leave you with is the exercise and Alzheimer's connection. Pretty recent study showed this Arisen, I believe I'm saying that right, but concentrations vary, and they're at the mouse level right now for research on this, but when they played with this hormone concentration, they were able to impact memory, and exercise tended to produce favorable responses to this hormone. So there is a link there. Probably more to come in the future on that. All right, so with that, wish you the best. Again, always a pleasure. What questions do you guys have? Who wants to do another Bonnie session? I'm trying to get warmed up again. So for the video, it's like 50 degrees, maybe 45. I'm fidgety. Go ahead.
If you're walking,
yes.
How would you like increase if you didn't want to like jog to do the height impact intensity? To get an interval in the walking, typically you're going to want to try to get a monitor on heart rate if you have a fitness monitor. If you don't have one, it's fine. You can just vary your level of exertion by fast walking for a certain maybe 60 minutes from here to 400 feet or 60 seconds. Sorry. Go 60 minutes and then do it again. Yeah. So yeah, 60 minutes and then 60 minutes off. No, vary pace. I would accelerate your pace. Go for a fast clip around the neighborhood. If you have a loop around the neighborhood that you do, go for a fast clip. Go mailbox to mailbox. Faster clip, regular walking pace. Faster clip, regular walking pace. And if you do that and vary the duration. 30 seconds, maybe start 60 seconds. Meet yourself where you are, and then try to move the needle from there over time. And what you'll probably find is a few weeks of doing that gets easier. Then you look for a different change. Then you might want to vary the course, uphill, downhill. Go to, Conneaut Township Park is a great park for walking. Got some nice vertical hills. Talk to people around here. I'm sure they've got great areas where they go. But beach walk, you're going to start to lose some of your energy in the sand. Accelerate up and down, and then plus you get the scenery and the